He's a global market specialist. First of all, Brazil, you're going through a very hard time in Brazil with the COVID.
Yes, I think actually there are some specific characteristics with regard to Brazil. And I think that's reflected in the poverty differentials. And I think, what we see is, back to your guest's comments about young people going back to their parents who have other morbidities. You have here you have the rich-poor split, and the poor are really packed into the favelas and into their living accommodation with multi-generations therein, rather like some of the affected areas in northern Italy. So I think that's what you're seeing, plus a health service that doesn't really provide the necessary service for them. Mm-hmm. Wealthy, everybody. I know a few people who've had COVID, but they've all been treated very successfully, and they didn't have other morbidities, fortunately. So I think it's unique down here as opposed to, say, Europe and the US.
Yes, so it's all about the health system also. Nick, could you give us your take on the global markets since things are starting to get going again? Okay, so
as you know, I have an optimistic bias towards how we come out of this and how things get reconfigured. And that is despite the decoupling that we're seeing clearly with China, that's beginning to manifest itself, not just with the US, but with Australia, now the UK and Canada for sure. And I think what was most interesting to me, not looking for justification, but I think it is implicit therein, Jason Furman, who was Obama's chair of his Council of Economic Advisors in Obama's second term, came out on Wednesday, I believe it was, and it was reported in a Politico article, that he is looking for the sort of economic rebound initially that, quote, the Democrats should be very fearful of, because this could provide economic growth data, the likes of which have never been seen in history. Now, clearly thereafter, once you've caught up to, say, 70–80% of what was pre-COVID normality, thereafter it will be a slog, and that's where I think interpretation of what's to come has value. And my own view is that the economies will certainly the Anglo-spheric economies will do better. I think China's got its issues, but interestingly enough, if I now look at the data. So, for example, when Australia came out, consumer sentiment broke records. In the US now, that was released this week, mortgage purchase applications broke a record on the high. So these sentiment indicators are showing us that there is enormous pent-up potential for a very V-shaped bounce back to a certain level below where we were before COVID struck. And I suspect that, I've spoken to friends who are in Florida, that's Tampa, that's very much open, in Dallas and in Los Angeles and New York. New York and Los Angeles, they're still fairly depressed about things, but Tampa and Dallas, it's very normalized now. People are out, people want to spend money, they're at the bars. I've got photos of friends who are at the bars. Mutual friend of ours, Leah Albert, was out the other night in Tampa. And people need that release. I suspect you'll see, come Monday, quite a lot of social gathering in the UK.
So, well, let's hope, Nick.